Welcome everybody to Corner Talk. This is the new supplemental series to My Corner of the World. I am PJ, and this is for those who just can't get enough of my podcast. You'll get some bonus content, extra insight from a variety of people, fans, experts, everybody in between. But for this premiere, I am here with Murph. He is a diehard fan of professional wrestling. He has got a lot to say about the debuts of CM Punk and Bryan Danielson in AEW. We are still very shocked that both these debuts happened, and we're still very shook, as they like to say. So, Murph, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
And if you haven't heard the original episode, first talking about Punk and Danielson's debuts in AEW, please check it out. I'll put the link in the description. So, to start off, first off, Murph, why are you a fan of professional wrestling, and how far back does your fandom go?
Oh, wow. So I got the wrestling bug right before Hulkamania. So like right around 85, 86, at the dawn of that. And just really the fandom just runs deep because it's, real life, hard hitting live drama, right? Real art, the art of it all, the in front of the scenes, behind the scenes, it's acting, it's sport, it's just the ultimate art, I think.
Oh yeah, it's just a little bit of all sorts of stuff. And I do agree with it being definitely a performance art. Some people say, is it a sport? Some people, and by people I mean Vince McMahon, say it's sports entertainment, but it's truly, it's something really amazing.
There's comedy. There's a little bit of everything for whatever you're looking for. I think if you can put your reality on hold for an hour or two, it's a great escape.
Absolutely, I definitely agree with that. So then let's jump right into it. When we were talking before the podcast, you mentioned that you were at both the premiere of AEW Rampage, which was at the United Center downtown Chicago, which was when CM Punk made his debut in AEW and his return to pro wrestling for the first time in 7 years. You were also at All Out, which was at the Now Arena, formerly the Sears Center. Oh yeah, that is awesome. And you saw Bryan Danielson's debut. You saw both their debuts firsthand. You also saw Punk's first match in 7 years, first time since the 2014 Royal Rumble against Darby Allin, also at All Out. But just hearing the crowd's reaction, whether it be on TNT or on pay-per-view, just hearing it on TV, I feel just doesn't do it justice enough. So how crazy were those crowds?
So we, just like everyone else who was watching AEW when Darby Allin announced that he was gonna, he mentioned drop the best in the world, just that phrase. And so we're like, are we gonna buy tickets based on just a hint?
Yeah.
Like a rumor? We heard some rumors, nothing's confirmed. Are we just gonna buy tickets? And we looked at each other like, CM Punk's gotta be there. They're not gonna let us down. And so just based on faith, we bought tickets, just faith that he would be there. So I had an idea, I've been to a lot of concerts and I've been to a lot of wrestling events. So I had an idea that it was going to be huge. Like the sound, I kept anticipating for that week, how loud it was going to be. And I said, okay, well, it's going to be probably the loudest thing I've ever heard. Okay. So we get there that night and there was wrestling before. When CM Punk came out, it was as loud as I thought it would be. But when he jumped into the crowd, it went to a whole nother level that I didn't even think was possible. I didn't even think, if everybody's screaming at the top of their lungs, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's been waiting to scream at the top of their lungs for 7 years or at least 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And you can imagine that. And everybody was, but when he jumped in the crowd, that place went nuts. That place went fucking nuts when he jumped into the crowd. And it was the loudest thing I've ever heard in a stadium.
Full disclosure, I also heard Darby Allin's hints, the best in the world. I saw the same rumors like through social media, Twitter, some of CM Punk's, hints on Instagram, with one of them being the beginning of Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project, which of course for Chicagoans, that is the Bulls theme song. So Bulls, United Center, and I, then when Rampage came around, I completely forgot about it. So I'm going on Twitter, as it happened, and I'm looking through, I'm seeing, okay, random political stuff, other random comments, and then I passed by CM Punk debuting. Wait a minute. So I, for a little bit actually forgot about it, but I am, yeah.
What a great surprise. Yeah. I mean, I already said, but it was built on a rumor. They sold out the United Center based on the possibility that he might come. Nobody promised it. Nobody promised that he was going to be there. Yeah, and they sold out the biggest. I mean, that's just blows my mind to this day.
Yeah, I was, I'm, very, it's just, awesome how they were able to sell out the United Center. And I, just, hearing the crowd again, I was hearing it on TNT. I unfortunately couldn't get tickets to Rampage, but I could imagine that the pop, how loud it got, was probably, dare I say, much louder than anything that happened with the Bulls or the Blackhawks. The Bulls winning the NBA Finals, the Blackhawks winning
the
Stanley
Cup.
It felt
like a Blackhawks Stanley Cup win. In fact, on TV, it's so loud that you can tell that the microphones peaked and it just couldn't capture any more sound. I mean, it was, that's, TV was, it's cool to watch back, but being there, you couldn't have another thought in your head.
Oh yeah. I mean, also I saw a documentary about Rampage not being the Elite, but another one that AEW put out, and it showed like scenes from, behind the scenes of people in the production truck. I think AEW still has, they do production trucks, and then just what, right before Punk came out, just yelling, cut camera 1, camera 3, camera 5, and then cold personality, and they were like, the producer was yelling at the top of his lungs. One guy even like raised his fist in victory. Like even they were, to use another term, marking out even in the production truck, which I thought was funny, but absolutely awesome.
There's another pop that wasn't televised. About 3 minutes before they went on air, Tony Khan came out.
Oh.
And he was very emotional, and he was very he was dorking out. He was very giddy. And you could tell it was emotional for him because he wanted to run a show at United Center. And I think the only other wrestling show WWE had a SummerSlam there, and I think there were some WCW shows there, 20 years back.
Oh yeah.
But he came out and he thanked everyone. He said, "Listen, thank you for all coming on The Promise, and we're not going to let you down." And you really felt like you got rewarded for being a wrestling fan and not insulted. He was very emotional about it. And then the clock started going backwards, and Sirius by like the Eye in the Sky pre song by Alan Parsons Project came on right before Rampage went on air. And I was talking to my son. I said, well, how are they going to, if they're going to do it, they can't do it in the middle of the show, because if they do it in the middle of the show, the whole crowd will be shit all over the screaming CM Punk. So of course they opened the show with it because there's no other place you could do it.
No way. Yeah, that was, it was the perfect return for someone who's just, not only is he a fantastic performer, but someone who's absolutely really beloved by the pro wrestling community as a whole.
In Chicago.
Nonetheless, in his hometown. Absolutely.
Probably walked there. I mean, he probably didn't have far to travel.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that he lives in the Plains, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought he lived in Wrigleyville at one point, but okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I thought Des Plaines at one point, Wrigleyville. I mean, yeah, it's possible. But so with both CM Punk and Bryan Danielson becoming all elites, how much of a boost does this mean to AEW's product?
Well, it puts a lot of eyes on it that I don't think it would have had otherwise. They've just been on a roll, right? And they're only a 2-year company. No, I don't know if anyone thinks they're gonna crush the worldwide, the world WWE, right? The phenomenon. But they're they're definitely carving out their slice, and I think it's a big slice, and I think it's for wrestling fans. If they stay on this roll, which you can't deny that it's growing. They're
Oh
still
yeah.
a new company, but it's not like they got Hall and Nash right out of the NWO. Like
Right.
Punk's been away for 7 years, okay?
Oh yeah.
And Daniel Bryan was on TV quite maybe overexposed on WWE a little bit. But the idea that these two legends, these two giant names left roughly about this, or came to AEW at the same time, CM Punk doesn't have to do too much to get me to tune in, and Daniel Bryan wants to wrestle, and the excitement of those two guys with the Omegas and the Bucks and John Moxley and Darby and Sammy Guevara and MJF and on and Hangman Page. I mean, these are new matches that WWE can't provide.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely gonna be huge bump to AEW's product, their profits, fans. Perhaps we'll have some fans maybe making the jump from other promotions, maybe even WWE to AEW. It all depends. But yeah, I
The
remember.
roster is stacked now. That roster is as stacked as WCW was in the NWO height. It's as stacked as the Attitude Era roster, and maybe as stacked as the Hulkamania era. It's as stacked. I mean, the top pack. I mean, you even if you don't know the wrestlers in the opening match, they haven't. I don't think Dynamite has had a bad opening match. That is
I think so.
wild
No.
to think it's even possible that every opening match is awesome on Dynamite.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They've had some incredible, just even openers. I remember a couple years ago when DX was being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. I think Triple H was talking to Billy Gunn and mentioned something about getting out of getting out of that, and I quote, pissant company. And I don't, I'm trying to remember if he was actually, I think he was referring to, I don't know if he was referring to AEW. I'm thinking of another promotion that.
No, it was.
Yeah.
Billy Gunn was in the Hall. He was being inducted in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But he already signed to work for AEW. So I don't know if he was taking a shot at his friend, like playfully, but he's definitely put his foot in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, just a couple of years later, how the turntables, you know what I'm saying?
NXT was the hot wrestling show. I mean, it was. Yeah. It's almost like as soon as they started chasing AEW and trying to put AEW out, that's when fans were like, "What are you doing? We love wrestling. Why are you trying to put this other company out? It almost was an admission that they were intimidated."
Yeah, they definitely. Yeah, WWE and NXT definitely intimidated by everything that AEW.
Saying I'm not afraid of you is mentioning that I'm afraid of you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and again, that, like you said, it was just in 2 years that AEW's been around. They're doing all of this, and it's just incredible.
They beat a Raw in ratings in the key demographic. I mean, that blows my mind.
Yeah, it's just I'm really looking forward to seeing everything that's going to be coming out of AEW, and especially with both Punk and Daniel Bryan. And it's
Adam Cole.
Adam
Cole. I mean, that's pretty much they took NXT's hottest wrestler for the last 18 months, and they have him now.
Yeah, and just a couple of days ago, they got Lio Rush too. So they've got everybody. They really have next to just about everyone. So far we've seen CM Punk square off with Darby Allin. He's also faced Powerhouse Hobbs, who's part of Team Taz. Bryan Danielson faced off against Kenny Omega at the I think
that was nuts. That crowd was nuts.
That match was actually at, if I remember right, the Arthur Ashe Stadium in New York, New Jersey. And I mean, and it's even being compared to a lot of WWE's recent events, at Madison Square Garden, which is the epicenter of arenas, well, New York wise.
Not to shift to Daniel Bryan quickly if you're not ready, but that match went to a draw. I feel like that was just like a sampler of what
Yeah.
Kenny and Daniel Bryan could do. Like they were just saying, hey, we're gonna have a main event pay-per-view for the title thing. We're just letting you, we're not even a tease, like almost like a teaser, like coming soon, the greatest match you've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely. When that match happens, I know that Dave, was it Dave Meltzer? Dave Meltzer is definitely going to give that 5 stars, no matter what.
Oh, yeah, right.
Hopefully he
He's
will.
got
Unless
7 stars now, right?
5 stars, 7 stars. Yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that. Who else would you love to see both Punk and Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan face in AEW?
In my house, we love Hangman Page, right? I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like we're looking at like the prequel to Stone Cold, right? Like if there was a backstory to Stone Cold, I feel
oh
like
yeah,
Hangman is that like, and he's just like he's not even blossomed yet, right? Sammy Guevara, right? MJF, Darby was awesome, and then there, Moxley's there for
oh
for
yeah,
for a CM Punk match. That could be fun, and if CM Punk's ready to do something hardcore. Um, in Pac, man. Pac is so underrated. He's like their answer to Finn Balor on the other side.
yeah. I agree. I would love to see. Honestly, I would love to see CM Punk and Chris Jericho square off again. I know they did a couple
Okay.
times in WWE, but I'd love to see them, square off one more time. There's bound to be, some unsettled scores there for sure.
I think the backstory, if they built on the story, the match is inconsequential, right? Like if you
Yeah.
build on a story that's 10 years, I'm in.
Oh yeah, for sure. Also, CM Punk versus MJF, two people who can definitely, a lot of, who can definitely talk on a mic. MJF really cocky, CM Punk get cocky sometimes, but also, can really lay into MJF. MJF is also kind of reminds me a little bit of Jericho in some points, in some instances.
Some Roddy Piper. He's got some
Oh,
Roddy Piper, yeah.
Hot Rod, yeah. Uh, for Daniel Bryan, definitely I could also see him facing Darby Allin too. Maybe even Jungle Boy,
Ricky
possibly.
Starks.
Ricky
How
Starks. Oh
amazing
yeah,
Ricky Starks, and I don't even think he's got started. I don't. I think he's like just touched the iceberg. But when Ricky Starks gets hot, maybe puts on 25 pounds more. But Ricky Starks is oozing talent.
oh definitely. And also another person I could see Punk and Danielson facing each other. I mean, having this match between just those two, they've faced off in ROH, they faced off a couple times in WWE. I mean, it's not, they don't face each other, it's not, it's not like John Cena and Randy Orton, which happens, I don't know how many times they faced each other now, 1.5 million,
Mm-hmm.
give or take. But
They came together, so they debuted so close. If they weren't such loners, make such a great team.
yeah,
You know,
they'd be a fantastic team. I remember, hearing during if you remember Colt Cabana's Art of Wrestling podcast when Punk went on his podcast back in November 2014, just
yeah,
11 months after he left WWE. One thing that Punk said when Creative was talking to him about potentially teaming with Daniel Bryan, Punk said that he and Daniel should be kept, apart unless they need as far apart as possible, unless they need, a really big storyline or, high like a main event for pay-per-view or for a few pay-per-views, similar to Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels.
absolutely. That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Punk on that. But how soon do you think it will be until these guys get title runs?
I don't know. Okay, so Daniel Bryan, right? Because he's still got some gas in the tank, right? And
Yeah,
he definitely wants to wrestle. I think Daniel Bryan needs to add that title, and that title needs someone like Daniel Bryan, somebody that main evented WrestleManias, and for him to be walking around with that belt, and you turn the TV on, you're like, wait a minute, I remember how fun the Yes Movement was,
yeah,
however many years ago, and he's the champion here. Why? Maybe I'll check that out, and I think he might bring back some of that late Cena era audience.
oh
For
yeah,
Punk, I think Punk is like the Undertaker. I don't know if he needs a belt. I think Punk, if he just CM Punk walking out in the crowd. If you have CM Punk, I don't know if a title adds anything to him at this point. I think he's above that. Like he's like a Roddy Piper or Jake. He's just the fact he's wrestling. He's going to put eyes on the product.
Definitely, I agree. Well, for me, I think that for title runs, I think that would be probably as soon as maybe after the new year, maybe to perhaps compete. Well, I don't know if they're not really looking to compete, but could provide an alternative to WWE's Road to WrestleMania. I mean, they're I know that a lot of fans want them to be like two separate entities. They don't want like the full competition, but it could definitely compete with
I forgot
the
Cody,
Rumble.
man. You asked about those
Cody. Of course,
Cody flies under the radar too. He's a main eventer that flies under the radar.
Yeah, completely forgot about Cody. I've loved they're bound to face Cody at one
promo. I think in the last 2 years he might be the best promo in wrestling when he's motivated.
Oh yeah, and plus he has Arn Anderson in his corner still. If I remember right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome too. But definitely for me, for title runs out of Punk or Daniel Bryan,
oh boy,
I'm thinking probably as soon as after the new year. But yeah, it's totally possible. Maybe it could be
Kenny's nailing it though. Kenny.
Oh yeah.
He's not a traditional wrestling promo. He's very eccentric, and he's got like a nerd quality to him that is. I don't think we've ever seen a character like Kenny. He's kind of like on his own planet. Even when he's out there with the elite, they're kind of looking at him like he's own wavelength. Sometimes he's not even same conversation. He's really entertaining and fun to watch. So who really is at that caliber to dethrone Kenny? And Kenny's going to have 4 and 5 reigns, right?
Oh yeah.
But who's at that caliber? I mean, it's Punk, it's Daniel Bryan, and unless they're trying to make someone, I think Cody's got to run in him too. Oh, Cody's going to run with that title.
Sure, absolutely. So what does these 2 big debuts, what does this mean for WWE's future? Do you think that they can, or it can rebound from this somehow?
I think WWE's they're the giant, right? Like they're not going anywhere. They're and again, as we watch both products, you see that WWE is now. It's obvious that WWE is like a kid-driven program. I love WWE. I love what Roman's doing and all that. I'm not knocking it. I won't knock it. But you see more kids in the crowd. There's no kids in the AEW crowd. That's an adult wrestling fan. And you can hear it in the crowd. When you watch Raw, you'll see people looking at their phones, kind of gazing off into the distance, and then somebody will come out, they'll pop for a minute, and then they'll sit back down and behave. At AEW, people lose their mind.
Yeah. AEW crowd is really a lot more into the whole experience than current WWE fans.
That Fox deal, man. I mean, that's right. If they hang out to that Fox deal, I think they can put anything on it. It's Friday night and people are going to tune in.
Oh yeah, I love what SmackDown's doing over on Fox. For me, I'm thinking, I honestly don't know about WWE. I want to believe that they can that they're not going anywhere. But considering a lot of things that have happened recently, the amount of superstars that have been released, a lot of it partially because of the pandemic, and but then some more recent releases, then Vince McMahon and Bruce Pritchard, brother love for some of you, recently took control of NXT from Triple H.
Right, it was those awesome takeovers turned into the NXT makeover, and that makeover. I think they thought that the appeal of NXT was the developmental aspect,
Yeah.
But I think they missed out that the appeal of NXT at its height was the indie aspect, because
Yeah.
they had all
Absolutely.
the indie guys, and now they're going back to like a developmental product, which I mean, it's the first couple episodes didn't have me glued to my seat, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Other than it being new, right? It was new, but I don't know if I wasn't so into AEW and SmackDown right now that I would even stop on NXT.
Right. I've read somewhere that there's a possibility that AEW, not AEW, NXT could go back to what it was in its original incarnation, like the kind of reality show competition thing.
Yeah, that's a step
I
back. You know?
Yeah, that's a
I think that's a
definitely
step back.
yeah.
Triple H took that and made it a third brand. It was hot. Those crowds were hot, hotter than Raw and SmackDown. And now they're saying, well, never mind. Let's just go back to being the internet show. And it's like, whoa, I I didn't watch that. I didn't watch the beginning of those shows. I watched it when Ciampa and Gargano first got
Yeah.
feuding, and then when they first got Adam Cole, and some of those names. If you don't have them, and I just don't think it's the same product. I think it's all the only thing it has similar is the name at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also saw memes of people like making fun of the new NXT logo compared to what was before. It looked more like, saw some people saying, hi, I'm, so and so, and you're watching NXT on Disney Channel or something like that.
Right.
So it looked like something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I don't think it's presented for adult long-term Rabbit fans. No.
No, not at all. Um, Also another thing that's, make me a little iffy about WWE, something recent at Extreme Rules, the Roman Reigns versus Finn Balor match, how that ended. It was just, with the rope coming off, and then Roman Reigns all of a sudden, winning it, just a strange fluke. It turned I don't think that was an accident at all.
Well,
It had
when you're done watching that match, you don't say, wow, that was fun, or wow, that was exciting. You shouldn't watch wrestling saying, oh, I don't know what that is. And then what you ultimately say is, oh, I don't know what that is, and I don't care. And that's what's scary, because Roman's super talented and Finn is one of the best in the world, right? And to put those guys together and give a non-finish like that, or a screwy finish, it's one of those things like the finger poke of doom where you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to watch this anymore.
yeah. Yeah, I don't really know about WWE, to be honest. It seems like history is kind of repeating itself from, what happened during the Monday Night Wars with Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo and Hulk Hogan, their NWO, and then all these off brands, it becoming, 95% NWO and 5%, trying to get, other talent, and having it be built around Hogan and all that stuff. And, having a lot of, some fantastic talent from WCW realizing, Bischoff doesn't know what he's doing. I'm going to go over to the WWF, where we have the Attitude Era in full swing, some fantastic performers, great, storylines, sometimes a little scandalous, but that was,
Have we seen an AEW talent go to WWE? Have we seen somebody that was, I don't know if we've seen anybody leave. I mean, maybe their contracts are locked in right now, but
right.
We haven't even seen the first AEW person leave.
Yeah, I don't think that's I don't think that has happened. If anything, we have now, similar to what happened with WCW, a lot of stars from WWE. Some have been, released by the company, but some have been saying I want out, and are now going over to AEW. And I'm,
what happens when Bray Wyatt shows up, right? Like, what happens then? Now you have 50-50 AEW's homegrown and these established WWE stars. Then what? Right?
Yeah.
Goldberg main events aren't making me excited.
Yeah. Goldberg's cool and all for the nostalgia of it, and sometimes having, John Cena return every once in a while. That's nice and all, but we want something, we don't, you can't just, revolve all around that. But I want to see Goldberg, I can just, watch something from
or watch Peacock,
WWE Network. Yeah, on Peacock. Or if I want to see, an old Cena match, I can just, again, type in John Cena versus Randy Orton, you'll probably get at least 5 different matches, including the one at the Royal Rumble where, the crowd completely booed the whole match, was very much again chanting for everything else except for Cena or Orton, which
similar to when Mike Tyson came out against Stone Cold in yeah. I wonder, they're building Roman. Are they counting on The Rock to come back and take on the head of the table? Now that would be a shift. There would be a shift of lapsed wrestling fans coming back to WWE for that.
Yeah,
that would be mega. But again, how long would it be? We know it's 3 months. We know it would be Rumble to WrestleMania, and then it's over. Right?
Yeah, I definitely agree with, I was, thinking about a long time ago, Roman Reigns versus The Rock, and thinking, that makes sense. I could imagine, perhaps maybe the Usos turning on Roman, perhaps after they, I think they're still tag champions if I remember right, them losing their titles, then, Roman Reigns, being a dick to them or for something, and then they're like, all right, we are done with you. And they're like, oh, but if you're not the family, then you're out of this business or whatever, you're turning against us. Be like, listen, or something cheesy like, all right, yeah, I don't need part of your family, but I'm part of this family or something like that. And The Rock comes out.
I see it that The Rock's going to need to bounce some guys around. And I can see him bouncing the Usos around for a couple of months until he gets his hands on Roman, obviously at WrestleMania. There's no other stage for that, right?
Yeah.
So bouncing the Usos around in singles matches or a tag match or at the Rumble or whatever it is. And then when he finally gets his hands on Roman, that's a big outside, crossover.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Crossover audience.
Yeah, and I'm, I know it's got to happen at some point. I, can't wait for that match specifically because it's going to be another fun one. It's going to be awesome.
If AEW stays on this roll, that won't make me stop watching AEW.
Oh yeah,
it's not enough for me, right?
Definitely. So according to his autobiography, yes, Daniel Bryan said that if it weren't for the immense crowd support and CM Punk's departure, he wouldn't have gotten his WrestleMania moment. He was originally slated to face Sheamus somewhere on the lower card, mid card. He wasn't, if it weren't for all that, he never would have gotten the miracle on Bourbon Street, as Michael Cole said. Do you believe that CM Punk was as held back as he claimed on that episode of Art of Wrestling back in 2014?
Okay, so I don't think he was held back, but I believe something happens when you are putting everything into what you, and I think obviously CM Punk put everything into what he was doing in WWE, and he was tired, admittedly, and he was hurt and he was sick, right? Yeah. So he was feeling unloved. He was feeling like he wasn't getting the attention, and he's sore, right? He's hurt, and he didn't get his. He's looking at the roster and said, "Well, there's not anybody as talented as me or working as hard." And celebrities come in. The Rock came in the previous WrestleMania and stole his thing, and I think he just had a lot of pride. And I think while he was feeling that, he felt like he was being held down. I don't know if he was really. It's kind of like Bret Hart, right? Like you're really not,
Yeah.
It doesn't all revolve around you.
Yeah.
But to CM Punk, those gripes is real and legitimate as he feels them. But in the big picture, he would have got his WrestleMania main event. It was going to happen. It might have been against Daniel Bryan. It could have been against Cena. I think those things in hindsight, he probably looks back and say, maybe I was a little petty, with
possibly.
That. Yeah.
Possibly, for sure. I don't, necessarily think that Punk was as held back as he mentioned, either. I mean, really considering the big thing was his record title reign, the 434 days as WWE champion, and all the other opportunities that you got, like, the pipe bomb, and even mixing up with, with even, some executives like John Laurinaitis, in the ring, which was, on the mic, I mean, John Laurinaitis, Triple H, Vince McMahon even. So, I mean, you can't say that he was, as held back. I mean, I agree with his, the different gripes that he had. He also mentioned, a creatively stifling environment in WWE because he had many ideas that were, shot down, like the one idea where he said, "Oh, I'm going to get a new hairstyle. I'm going to, switch to fire shorts and get all these sponsors and have all these, interview with people like with like Jim Rome and all these guys. And Vince is like, oh no, our sponsors are gonna get mad. And then, turn around and then Brock Lesnar comes back and he has, he's wearing his fighting shorts from UFC. But I mean, he already had contracts with lots
creative as Punk. For somebody that's as creative as Punk, it probably was stifling for him. Yeah. But that's what that arena is. That's Vince McMahon's house, right? Like, so I don't know if, I mean, there wasn't an AEW for him to express himself. There wasn't an option. So he thought, well, if I'm not going to wrestle on a big stage, I'll wrestle again, as he said. But that stage is here now. So I think, and it's notorious. We've heard that these guys bring their characters and bring their own ideas,
Yeah. Why do you think CM Punk never got his wish of being the WrestleMania main events? Like what he considered the main event to be, going on last at WrestleMania, being the closing, the big match. Why do you think he never got that wish when he was in WWE?
I mean, that's a single wrestle. I'm obviously not anti-Punk. It's a single WrestleMania, right? And it was Rock and Cena. Where would you put Rock and Cena on that main? I mean, I'm just saying, it was a Cena and Rock main event, and Rock wasn't going to do another WrestleMania, and Rock was not going to go anywhere else but last, and Cena wasn't going to go anywhere else at last if he's going to, I just think it was just, he was going to get his time. I really do believe he was going to get his main event. It just wasn't that year. Now, was he the hardest working guy on the roster? Probably. And so, but being the hardest working, and life's not fair. You don't always get, what you're hoping for. And there's, WWE's a world with 20 main characters, if that makes sense. And so for him not to be the main character at that point, it was offensive to him because of how hard he worked, right? And because he's an underdog, right? He's an underdog. That's why he's popular. So the whole, you think about Daniel Bryan's yes movement, Punk was capable of that too.
Yeah.
Punk was capable of rallying people behind him. If Punk did a second pipe bomb and said, hey, they don't want me in the main event of WrestleMania, and the crowd heard that, they would have been going nuts for Punk to be in the main event. So, it really is that really was Daniel Bryan really took advantage of that void that Punk left, for sure.
For sure. Absolutely. So do you see either CM Punk or Daniel Bryan, or even both of them, returning to WWE at some point? And also, do you think that some management in WWE would want them back?
No. So they're going to say right now that they're not interested, right?
Yeah.
Because WWE's like smug and they're too big for it. WWE, I think, totally would take both of those names back because of the history, and they want that. They wouldn't turn their back on the CM Punk pop. They wouldn't. I mean, they wouldn't do that. I don't think CM Punk would go back because he has found success outside of WWE. So to go back, what purpose would it serve for him, right?
Yeah.
Daniel Bryan, I think Daniel Bryan likes to wrestle, and I think if the creative was right, I could see him coming back on some capacity, like kind of like Edge just did last year,
Yeah.
Come back and main event WrestleMania and the story's right. Sure. I see Daniel Bryan, not so much Punk, because Daniel Bryan didn't leave on bad terms, but Punk did. And I think, even when Punk talks about it now, it seems like there's a little bit of resentment.
Yeah. I also believe that Daniel Bryan could definitely come back in a few years, time after, tearing it up in AEW. And I know that, that Vince McMahon would him back. I know that he was trying to get Daniel Bryan to sign a new contract as his, last one expired. But, Daniel Bryan still made the jump. He would definitely, come back some point and Vince would want him back. As for CM Punk, I also agree that he probably will not be back. I think that there's still, a lot of bad blood within WWE management after how Punk left, like that last day, the day after the 2014 Rumble, right before Raw in Cleveland, him, getting into that big, argument with, Triple H and Vince. I mean, Vince would there's a small part of me that thinks Vince would want him to, would want him to return. I mean, he did make that apology, that a week after that our wrestling episode came out, when Vince McMahon was on Stone Cold's Broken Skull Sessions and made that public apology. Punk said, it was just a publicity stunt, but if, Vince, and Punk sat down and, they, had some time to talk it out, perhaps that he could come back. But I don't know.
feel like Punk had his his United States comeback. That's a once in a lifetime thing, right?
Yeah.
And he comes back to WWE. Yeah, the crowd's going to go nuts. Vince McMahon isn't going to drop everything to rent out the United Center just so CM Punk can have another comeback. You can't replicate that.
Yeah,
so then it's going to always be less than, I think. Always.
Yeah, definitely. So who do you think will make the jump to AEW next? Not just in WWE, but in any promotion.
I mean, Bray Wyatt, man, is the
yeah.
I mean, that I if I'm going to fantasy book it, he takes over the Dark Order for his fallen brother. Because right now, Fallen Order, Dark Order is in there, like, they have conflict going on, right? And Bray coming in to sort that out, maybe drop a couple people. And Evo Uno right now on TV is kind of the guy that's like ditching Dark Order. Well, he would have to if Bray took over, right? It would be too much, I think. And I think Bray taking over Dark Order is just an obvious thing, and he would bring it to bigger heights than, I think he would take it further than Brody. And Brody did an awesome job, but Bray is another level of charisma.
I agree. Yeah. Or should I say, in the words of Mr. Brody Lee, yeah. Mm-hmm. May he rest his soul. For me, I think that the next people to make the jump to AEW, definitely agree with Bray Wyatt. I'm thinking Kevin Owens or Kevin Steen. I know that he's at the end of his current contract with WWE. He, might be looking for something else to, mixed up with some.
He actually posted, I guess, a couple years back, it was the Bucks, Adam Cole, and Kevin Steen were the Mount Rushmore, and he posted something that he just posted the coordinates for Mount Rushmore. Rushmore, and then he took it down real quick.
Yeah.
So he's telling everyone, I got my eye on it. He's at least he knows what's going on, and he's not being used as a main event guy right now. And Kevin Steen also is another guy that I think would the schedule, because it's lighter, and the creativity would appeal to him.
Yeah,
and he'd be with his friends.
Yeah, I mean, we can definitely see the return of Mount Rushmore. I think it's funny that Kevin Steen, a Canadian, is using a tag team called Mount Rushmore, which is as American as apple pie.
Right.
Another person, I think, maybe Sami Zayn.
Oh, I was thinking that too, and I saw Sami Zayn when he first had his he had that little feud with Bobby Lashley.
Yeah.
And he was nailing, and Bobby was just like kind of just standing there. Bobby didn't have to do a single thing. And Sami Zayn carried that whole feud with his sisters and you're not a real military guy. And Sami just carried that feud, and then he got hurt. Dictate whether or not they take Sami or not. But Sami, I mean, I was hoping Sami be a WWE champion by this point, because he's talented enough.
Yeah, you have to wonder if there's something to that whole conspiracy theory storyline that he was doing.
Yeah. He must have had some input on that.
Yeah. I mean, he did. I mean, honestly, he did the conspiracy theory storyline 1,000 times better than what R-Truth did with John Cena many years ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know that he had, Jake Paul coming in and stuff, but honestly, it was, much better when comparing those two storylines. So for me, Kevin Steen's, Kevin Owens, if you will, and Sami Zayn definitely agree with you with Bray Wyatt.
Shinsuke and Cesaro. Shinsuke and Cesaro are from that indie family too. More Cesaro, but Shinsuke and Cesaro on AEW, I can see it. I don't think AJ will ever go. I think AJ's has WWE in his blood now.
Oh yeah, definitely AJ Styles. Another thing, speaking of, you brought up Shinsuke, I could see in the future perhaps AEW doing a show or two in Japan, and having like some of their stars who, cut their teeth in Japan, making that comeback and having those, the crowd, throwing the streamers in, that sort of, thing too. Plus, can be a
Shinsuke
fantastic
and
crowd
Punk.
overseas.
Imagine Shinsuke and Punk
man.
presented in a main event way, not just a one-off on a TV show. Like Shinsuke and Punk, I mean, that's a huge pay-per-view for me, main event.
Oh man, yeah, I would definitely, definitely, pay however much money is a pay-per-view now to see that, everything. For sure. One final, question before we close this out. Uh, going back to WWE a little bit. WrestleMania has been, their location is they've been, doing the same locations, over the past few years, having like the same rotation: California, Florida, New York, California, Florida, New York, Texas, just one time, and then the same thing. But I would love to see WrestleMania return to Chicago at some points, because I feel like I know that Chicago has a lot of elements, well, mainly the weather. Because I mean, when WrestleMania happens, it's usually beginning of April, and we've had snow on baseball opening days in Chicago too. But I would love to see WrestleMania return at some points. I mean, I know that since WrestleMania 22, this event has graduated from something like the not the United Center, the Allstate Arena and Rosemont,
From
all
like
the
arenas
way
to stadiums,
to
yeah.
the big football stadiums. And I think Soldier Field would definitely be
Well, they're talking about building a new place for the Bears, and that might be an option.
Another one, yeah, where former Arlington Park used to be, RIP.
If it's domed, then I think they could do it. They could pull it off. Yeah.
If it's domed, for sure. But also, if you remember, this past WrestleMania, the first nights in Tampa, they had a weather delay, a storm delay.
Oh.
So I was,
they don't want to do that again.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't want to do that again. But if it does happen, I mean, I hope it wouldn't happen again. But I mean, Chicago can handle the weather, even so. I mean, even in inclement weather, WWE can still find a way to make things work, even if they have to, scramble and say, okay, just go up to an interviewer, just say something, get into an argument with your opponent, something like that. They could definitely do that. Again, when it happened, it was a little bit of a train wreck, but still possible. But if not Soldier Field, or the Bears' potential new stadium in Arlington Heights, also other possibilities are Wrigley Field or Guaranteed Rate Field. They have plenty of options.
It's the time of year. I think April is. I mean, it's still cold in April, right?
Yeah.
It's still cold in April. It's they say April showers bring May flowers. Not in Chicago. We're still wrapping up the winter in April.
April snow brings May ice storms in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I would definitely love. I mean, Chicago, of course, a hot wrestling crowd. And bringing in, not just Chicago, but really the world to WrestleMania. You've got people coming in from throughout the whole country, all 50 states, plus around the world. I would love, that'd be an incredible event for the city.
I was at WrestleMania 22, and that whole week there were events throughout the city.
Yeah,
and it felt like Allstate Arena really couldn't contain WrestleMania. Like WrestleMania at that point was so big that we felt like we were. But it's such a great place to see wrestling. So Chicago wrestling is, you've heard Stone Cold say it, you've heard Jim Ross say it, you've heard I think Chris Jericho said it, that Allstate Arena's one of the loudest arenas there are.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that when it comes for wrestling. Absolutely. Well, Murph, thank you so much for
this is awesome, man.
Yeah,
this is a lot more fun. This is a lot of fun, man. I'd love to do this again. This was great. Like, I've just met you, and we speak that language. We speak that wrestling language.
Definitely. I also would like to make a big thank you to Mr. Michael Wallace for helping us set up this, for helping me getting, and connecting with Murph and, getting this set up. Just so a big thank you to him too.
Hey, Mike. Yeah.
And Murph says hi. But Murph, thank you so much for coming on to the first episode of Corner Talk. Also, if you be sure to be on the lookout for more episodes of My Corner of the World and more Corner Talks, in the near future. Share us on social media, spread the word, and please keep a lookout for more to come. I'm PJ, and this is Murph. Murph, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Every week I check the TV guide, hoping that they cancel Saturday Night Live. For 6 weeks straight I couldn't tell you how it felt when I saw Mr. Perfect smash the championship belt. I knew right then it was worth the wait. They can show Dice Clay on a later date. I wanna see Big Boss Man and Akeem, the Cobb County Guard and the African Dream.